Your Steve Jones Show podcast will start shortly. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Brewers Outlet, your beverage supermarket on Reagan Street in Sunbury. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Sponsored by Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. 6 great flavors of slushies, pickle bar led by the barrels and the dills, indeed second to none, all at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. And we're in the Sunbury Motors studio, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. All right. So let's get to our play-by-play call of the day. Big night for Brian Hayes.
3-2 pitch, swinging a fly ball, tailing away from Harrison center field. He dives for it, can't get it. It'll go trickling toward the wall. Around second, Reynolds heading to third. He's going to be waved home. And the relay on a hop comes into Arcia. No chance to get him. It's a triple for Hayes, bringing in the run, and the Pirates lead it 6-4. Another RBI for Brian Hayes.
Joe Block with the call on the Pirates Network beat the Braves. Does your team play the Braves? You ever play them?
They will next weekend. They go to Miami, and then they go to Atlanta next weekend.
Gun. Wow, it's
I
August.
know.
That's great. Boy.
And guess what? They're going to lose 2 out of 3 to Miami, and then they're going to get swept by the Braves.
How'd that Chicago trip go?
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
I believe in the last 11 series the Yankees have played, I believe they've lost 10 of them and split 1. Is that right?
That is probably close, if not exactly accurate.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah. So there you are. But Brian Hayes, I mean, look, good-looking prospect. There's no getting around it. I mean, he always has been. He's just got to stay healthy. He's a really good fielder, by the way. His biggest problem when it comes to getting a Gold Glove is Nolan Arenado. That's his big problem. So, all right. Well, let's see. At least it's been fun to talk a little bit about camp. Yeah. I just kind of take camp one day at a time. You know, at the end of the week, kind of get a feel as to where they are with the whole thing. And they have been, it's always, we use the phrase in recruiting about stacking classes, and I feel like Penn State has stacked 3 classes in a row, which is really important. And, you know, in preseason, you're trying to stack days. And they've been able to stack some days in the preseason. Now, we're going to find out how it all matches up when they play West Virginia. Because, again, sports is it's so much about matchups. That's why A can beat B, B can beat C. But well, wait a minute. A beat B and B beat C. Well, how come C beat A? For some odd reason, they match up better with them. Right? And so it's all about matchups as to what you're doing. But, you do what you can in the preseason, but you're still facing each other. So for the most part, you're asking yourself, how do you judge a play, for example, and for the fans that might be going to this tomorrow, how do you judge a sequence of plays? And you judge a sequence of plays because on every play, there's a winner and a loser. And they're both in the same team because you're facing each other. Now, sometimes you'll see when the ball will be thrown, it's perfectly thrown, the coverage is phenomenal, and the guy makes the play, makes the catch. Wow, offense won that. But, you look at the defense and go, okay, nothing wrong there. You couldn't have played it any better, okay? You had the right leverage, you were in the right spot, and it just turned out this way. Okay. That happens. But when you get into the competitive drills, and Penn State does a fair amount of competitive drills, this is what you should be watching for. What's the final in the coach's mind of the winning and losing of the drill? If it's somewhere, like let's just take 15 plays. If it's 8-7 one way or the other, that was a great sequence. If it's 12-3 offense, you're like, as a coach, you're like, that's not what I'm looking for. Or it's 12-3 defense, that's not what you're looking for. You're trying to get as many 8-7, if it happens to be 15 plays, maybe less than that, maybe more, I don't know. You're trying to get as many 8-7s as you can, one way or the other. See, that's what I like about what's happened in the preseason, why I feel good about what I've seen so far. I've seen a lot of 8-7s. Sometimes it's been 8-7 offense, sometimes it's been 8-7 defense. And I'm just using 15 as a round number. It doesn't mean every single sequence is 15. I'm just saying, if you're seeing where it's divided, where it ends up being decided by one, that's been, for the most part, a great sequence. And that's what you need to look for. If it's, that was 10-5, like one way or the other, like, okay. Because if you want to have a really good, solid, all-around football team, good, solid, all-around football team, there are times the defense has to beat the offense. There are times the offense has to beat the defense. So that's, so if you're wondering what I look for in terms of the ability, quote, to stack days, like I referenced before, that to me is stacking days. When you can have a bunch of days where the competition is so good and it's so close, especially when you're doing good on good, it gives you a really good feeling about where you stand with the team. Because in the end, look, this is not, college football is the only sport that does not have preseason scrimmages. I'm talking about against somebody else. The NFL, for example, the Eagles are going to play the Ravens tomorrow night. Matt will be locked in the entire time, screaming at the kids, look, I'm trying to watch the fifth-string quarterback here.
That'll be accurate for the first half of the game. Then they'll hopefully be asleep, and then I can watch the second half in peace.
I have no idea what you're watching for. All right, so I'll come back from, I don't even know what time this thing's over tomorrow, maybe 9:30 tomorrow night. Maybe I'll watch like a series. Go, okay, great. But oh well. What are you watching for tomorrow night?
For tomorrow night, first I want to see if Nakobe Dean plays, because he's been hurt and has missed a couple practices, but he's back, and he's generally been the guy taking number one reps at middle linebacker. But I think Ross Tucker made a great point yesterday. You got to see him really in action to get a feel for it, because a lot of the training camp notes that I've read, he's looking good. He's not missing any assignments, but he's not really flashing. So I'm curious how that would go in full speed. And then I'm looking at the secondary. Reed Blankenship looks like he's taking the one starting safety spot away, but looks like it's a competition between Terrell Edmonds, a former Steeler, and Kayvon Wallace. And to me, if Edmonds doesn't beat Kayvon Wallace, that's a problem, because I think Kayvon Wallace stinks. So I'm looking at that first off. Obviously, Jalen Carter, to see if all the hype that's been surrounding him from camp is actually true. See how he does in his first action. Nolan Smith has had a really good camp, apparently, so I'm curious to see how he does. So that's just a couple things I'm looking for. I am curious to see the whole second-team offense, because I guess they've really struggled in this camp, and then I guess they revamped the offensive line to move guys out that were struggling. That was kind of making the whole unit struggle, and I guess that's worked. So I'm just curious to see the dynamics there with the second-team offense. And, the starters, you always want to see how everything looks, but I'm sure it's fine. The running back rotation's going to be interesting, but I don't know how much you're really going to see. So, yeah, I got a list of what I'm looking for tomorrow.
The Indianapolis Colts were 4-28-1 in preseason games that when Peyton Manning was on the team.
Oh, I'm aware. I know that they were bad, and that's because Peyton also didn't play that much, but yeah.
Yeah. They won a Super Bowl, didn't they? Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. The all-time great quarterbacks. Again, it's just, that's why one of the reasons I put some stock in it. I think what Bob Pompiani and Ross Tucker both pointed out yesterday, it's important for them to, point out whatever they can point out in a preseason game. And because to me, spots 30 through 46 are on the line. And, there's competition, obviously, maybe at a couple starting spots and so forth. You want to see in practical application? Great. And then, who's going to get 30 through 46? Because a lot of those guys on 30 through 46 are going to be reasons why you win games. Jalen Carter's attorney going to be at the game? Or? No? Kidding.
As far as I know, he's not.
Just asking.
I mean, there's always going to be that. There's no doubt. But until anything comes up with that, I want to see, is he going to be at least worth it on the field? And so far, it looks like he's been pretty much flashing it every day. So I want to see it now when the lights are on.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, Jordan Davis, too. I knew I was forgetting somebody. Jordan Davis, too, I want to see. Apparently, he's lost a lot of weight and looks leaner. And from the pictures I've seen, that's true. But now, how does it go into game action? So I definitely want to see some of him too tomorrow.
Well, they have the most talented team, probably top to bottom in the NFC. I mean, they really do. So let's see how it plays out. I think they've done a good job of drafting. I mean, they've done a good job of not only bringing in talent. Now, you talk about Dean, Davis, Carter, and Nolan Smith. You mentioned all four of them. What do all four of them have in common?
Georgia.
Right. They're all from Georgia, so they understand winning. Now, this is the National Football League. Unless something shocking happens, they're not going to go 16-0. So how are the three of them going to handle adversity? Because in their time at Georgia, there was very little adversity. You're going to run into a game every year where you've got to fight it out. And for Georgia last year, the game they had to fight it out last year was Missouri. I mean, that's the game. Every time, every team, 94 Penn State, 12-0 team, the game they had to fight out was Illinois. 86 national championship team, out of nowhere, the game they had to fight it out was Cincinnati. Georgia last year was Missouri. So there's going to always be a game where you have to fight it out in college football. Even when you have great, great years, you don't just bowl over everybody. Well, in the NFL, you do lose a couple of games. How do you respond from that? Because, I mean, those guys haven't really had to respond from that in a while. I mean, they responded to the SEC championship game loss to Alabama. I think, yeah.
Right, yeah. No, it's a good point. Absolutely.
You know, I mean, how do you do that? Because, I mean, for the most part, everything's gone their way. All right. I'm going to assume Lamar Jackson's not playing tomorrow, right?
I wouldn't be shocked. If he does, he's going to play a series. I would like to see the Eagles starters play a series or two, but I won't be shocked if they don't play either. And if they're going to play, it's going to be tonight because they have joint practices with the Browns and the Colts the rest of the way, so they're not going to play in the preseason games the rest of the way. But I think they should play a series tonight. I should. But I don't think the Ravens are going to play Lamar Jackson because I don't think he's ever played in the preseason. But as far as the Eagles go, I'd like to see everybody play a series.
I don't want him running. So, I mean, I don't want him running. I mean, why would I want him running?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, keep it simple, but I think he needs to get, I think for Hurts, he needs to get his feet wet. Everybody needs to get their feet wet. And then you have the joint practices, and then I don't need to see him because they're going to get those reps in the joint practices.
Well, the way it's done now, September is, in the last few years, playing out as a very ragged month. The first 4 games, I mean, almost all the September games, and this includes the Eagles. The Eagles were not the sharpest tool in the month of September last year. In fact, their game with Detroit was highly competitive.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, that's for everybody. I mean, I don't expect Mahomes to be sharp. Nobody, because they are so cautious about preseason games. They want to bubble wrap everybody. So.
If I'm the NFL, here's what I do. Because, I mean, these joint practices are trending to where the NFL preseason training camps are going, I think, and you're eventually not going to see preseason games anymore. But if I'm the NFL, here's what I do. Most teams are doing 1 to 2 joint practices with teams. Instead of making them private and you have to follow the beat writers on Twitter, some teams, if not all teams now, have some sort of public availability to come watch practice. Just have the 1 or 2 of the open practices, of the joint practices with the team that you're playing, the 2 teams, at the stadium that the home team that's hosting the joint practices, and you charge fans like $10 or whatever. That's what the Eagles charge for the open practices to come in and watch that, because you're going to see more action in that to me than in the preseason, at least with the starters, because that's where the starters are getting all their reps now. Well, if I'm the NFL, I take advantage of that and dump the preseason games completely.
Well, this is the problem I have with the preseason games, quite simply. They're charging regular season prices for preseason games.
Exactly right, yeah.
And that's the part that's not right. I'm sorry. There has to be a point. If you were to ask the NFL owners 15 years ago that you would get a 10-year media contract for the amount of money they're getting now, they'd have probably needed to sit down in a chair and go, really? They're all making and getting more money than ever. Well, guess what? Guess who pays the cable bills? The fans. Guess who pays the ticket prices? The fans. Guess who pays for the luxury suites? The fans. Guess who pays for the parking? The fans. Guess who pays for the food in the tailgate? The fans. Guess who pays for the gas to get to the game? The fans. All this. Give them something. Give them something.
Exactly. You do these joint practices, that will give them something, in my opinion.
I mean, even a preseason game. Hey, everybody, $10 a piece. We're going to give all the money to NFL charities.
Yeah, I would be okay with that, too.
Okay? Guess what? Okay? Instead of like, hey, it's part of your regular season package. Oh, knock it off. Okay? It's become something where you sit back. You need. I swear, when they do all this stuff, nobody sits there and talks about the fan. Come on. They're always talking about their business and the whole thing. You know, you can't have a game without the players. Well, okay, that's true. You can't have a game without the owners. That's true. Well, guess what? If you have no fans, you have no game. You can be the greatest football player in the face of the earth, and if nobody goes to your game or watches your game, you are invisible. No fans, no game. You got to give something back to them. You're making more money than you ever dreamed of. There is no need to gouge. There's no need to gouge. All right. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Brewers Outlet.
This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK, sponsored by Brewers Outlet. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. And the pickle bar, led by the barrels and the dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. And we are in the Sunbury Motors studio, Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. I believe it's time for the King. And he's there.
Hello.
Hey,
King.
what's going on? What's going on?
I'm sitting outside a restaurant in Simsbury, Connecticut. So I'm at work.
Yeah,
I had to take measurements there for one of Helmar's restaurants. So it's right down the road from the international skating place, the famous place.
Yep.
You know, where Katarina Witt and all those guys train there.
Sure.
Simsbury is a beautiful town. So
Katarina
I backed
Gordieva.
into his light pole. Huh?
Yeah, Katarina Gordieva was there, and a lot of people.
No, she's not here now, I'm sure, but all the famous skaters have trained here for years.
Yeah.
So it's right in the middle of Simsbury. Nice town, beautiful town. He's got a restaurant here. It's called Abigail's, and this was on national television about, I'd say, 20 years ago. Remember that show they used to have, the place was haunted?
Yeah.
You know, haunted places, and those guys would go in with the machines, and, well, they went to this place. And it's called Abigail's because a woman named Abigail lived here. It's like a big house. And the whole place, this is no lie, they always said it was haunted. And then it was called the Chart House for years. And it burned down. And everything burned down in the building except for the picture of Abigail. No water damage, no smoke damage, no fire damage. And Helmar was able to get the painting from the museum in town and rehang it in the building. It's freaky. Yeah, I'm sitting outside it now waiting for, like, the building to move or something. You know? But anyway, I've done a ton of work.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, that show wanted to do a sequence on our staff meeting room.
S-U-I-T, that spells Suta!
Yeah.
A lot of restaurants are haunted. Remember Pasco's in East Windsor?
Yeah.
That's haunted. I know people who won't even go upstairs in it. I made all the railings in that place. I was like, come on, come out, show yourself. I wanted to see a ghost or something, but whatever.
Then there's Frankie's.
So,
then there's Frankie's.
Yeah, Frankie's got a lot of trouble. Oh, yeah, he burned down like 5 times.
5 times. But he burned down.
Yeah.
It was over in Suffield originally. So it burns down, and he builds a bigger and better place. It burns down again. He builds a bigger and better place. Burns down again, builds a bigger and better place. Then 4th time, bigger and better place. Then the 5th time was the big restaurant over in our town, Enfield. Frankie's, Firehouse or Fireside or whatever it's called.
Yeah. They put a fire hydrant right in the place.
Right. And it lasted for a long time, and then that burned down.
No, it didn't burn down. He tried to burn it down, and he got caught. And then they went after him for tax evasion. You would go in there to buy a pizza, and he have 2 registers. If you were paying by cash, it got rung up in that register. If you were paying by check or credit card, it got rung up in the other register. And you knew all the cash was going into the ground. He was in the mob. Somebody blew half his house right off. So his kids came home. My ex-wife used to cut his daughter's hairs, and both daughters' hair. And they said they came home the week before, and the whole back end of the house was blown right out. Somebody blew it up. He was in the Springfield mob. So he went to jail. He got in a lot of trouble the last time. They went after him for $800,000 in back taxes. So, but if he paid by cash, he's stuck in his pocket. So can't do that.
Well, the suits
kind of like college football now.
Everybody's getting money.
Is that big money or what? Holy cow!
Yep.
How do you feel about it? The California stuff.
Well, I was excited that USC and UCLA were coming in. I mean, I thought that made the conference better.
Well, it's good for football, but how about the other sports?
Well, basketball, for example, it's February and you got a trip to Los Angeles. I'm not complaining about it.
Well, yeah, but I'm not even talking about basketball. That's still a money program. How about wrestling? How about
wrestling isn't affected at all by it because none of these 4 schools have wrestling, so that stayed the same.
Well, let's just say the sports they do have.
This is what I was talking about yesterday. This is what I think they should do. And the coaches have been the ones over the years that have resisted this. And I think they need to seriously consider. If you have 18 schools in a conference, okay, why don't you divide it into 6 divisions and regionalize your play with a crossover into each division every year? And just kind of rotate through the crossovers as time goes, but regionalize your travel as much as you can. And I think it would be better for everybody in the end if they did that. Now, that's just me, and that would just be me sitting in a room saying, hey, look, let's bounce some ideas. That would be one I would float.
Right. It just seems complicated to me that for the other sports. Football, everybody, all they talk about is football, That's it. They don't even reference the other sports. And, people are starting to talk about that now. The cost to fly the field hockey team to L.A., is quite expensive,
That's why you have to – there's several things you have to do. Number one, right, I think you need to put in 3 6-team divisions. That's one. Number 2, you block schedule. All right? So you take the men's and women's soccer teams, the volleyball team, and they're all making a trip to Oregon and Washington. That's the crossover. You put them on one plane, one hotel, 2 hotels because you have to go to Seattle and Eugene. And that's your trip, and you come back, and that takes care of all 3 at once. Now, you need a block schedule, And I think you also need to regionalize travel.
Sounds like they have a plan. You just hope that there's other things.
That's my plan. I don't know what their plan is at all. That's
that's kind of the point I'm making. It's some of the stuff like the portal and the especially the college athletes getting paid. They jumped into it way too quickly. That they didn't foresee the problems that were going to arise from it. And now they're locked into it, and they have the problems to go with it. And maybe they should walk before they run. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's because they kept kicking the can down the road. They refused to deal with it 10, 15 years ago when they should have. And everybody knew they should be taking care of it, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, well, they jumped into all the stuff, and it's changed so much with the gambling. What happened with the Iowa schools? I just saw the headline.
Okay, yeah. So several of their athletes were accused. Not all were found to have been involved, but there are several that have been indicted at both Iowa State and Iowa. And 3 of the wide receivers, now 2 of them had already transferred out, but 1 is still there, and evidently he used his mother's DraftKings account or whatever, to do it. And they keep talking, till they're blue in the face, they keep talking to athletes about gambling. Now, the rules have changed a bit in college when it comes to gambling. It used to be you could not, up until May, I think it was, you weren't allowed to bet on any sport at any level if the NCAA sponsored the sport. So in other words, you could not bet on Olympic volleyball because college volleyball is played. You couldn't bet on an NFL game because the NCAA has football. Things like that. Mm-hmm. So they've liberalized those rules a little bit, but it's still a big problem that they don't have to be diligent about the entire time because it's too easy to do it. You can just sit there and
that's the problem
on your phone.
And it's the same thing as what I was referring to. They got into it too quickly. That there should be no gambling at all for them. That's it.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
no
essentially
gray
what they're
area.
saying. In other words, about the only thing they could gamble on would be the horses or something like that because there's no horse racing in the NCAA. Now, to me, you always have these disclaimers. If you think you have a problem, call this number. Right? You want to know what the tip-off is?
I know the numbers by heart.
Okay. Do you want to know what the tip-off is that you might have a problem? You're betting on NFL preseason games. You might have a problem. We'll come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
Headlines.
All right, Steve, why don't you kick it off?
Bucknell applies for Pac-12.
I would definitely not want that to happen.
Claims there are openings.
I'm fine staying in the Patriot League. All good with me. King?
How many pitches will Chris Sale throw this year?
I'd say 50.
I'll take the under.
You ever seen anyone get hurt like this guy? He's pitched 4 games in 4 years. He makes like $25 million a year. Even when he's healthy, he goes to minor leagues. Last year, and has a bad outing and breaks the entire clubhouse, smashes the TVs, breaks his hand. He can't pitch again. So he's one of the most intense pitchers out there who never pitches. So I think he's pitching tonight for the first time this year. So good luck, Chris Sale.
There it is. Well, Kevin Brown is back tonight as well for the O's, back in the booth after his outrageous suspension. So these next few headlines for me may or may not reflect that incident. So let's start with this headline. O's employee suspended for buying wrong coffee creamer.
Here's mine. John Angelos decides to broadcast the games himself for the rest of the season.
Audience suffers. There you go. King.
Well, a lot of places, but will the United States American women recover from losing in the World Cup?
Yes, they will.
I think they've got big problems. Do you think they will?
I think they will because they have the talent. I'm not enamored with the coach, but they have the talent to come back. They just need to get more time.
I tell you what, that Sweden team that beat them is very good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say between now and the Olympics in Paris, I'd like to see a couple of the younger players emerge.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's still a key time. Yeah.
I think some of the older players, there does get to a certain point where there's the skill level on other teams has caught up to them. I'd like to see a couple of the younger players when they go to Paris get a chance.
No question.
I don't think they realized how good Carly Lloyd was. What a great soccer player she was.
I don't know. I think they knew what they lost in her. I don't know.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying they had no offense at all. I mean, none. They scored, don't count the penalty kicks, they scored 3 goals in the entire tournament.
I mean, the last goal they scored was that one in the Netherlands that tied it up 1-1 on the header. That's the last goal they scored.
Yeah.
I mean, the penalty kick
Sweden
thing,
was nothing to nothing.
Okay. When you're sitting there and the goalkeeper for Sweden, and they won. Remember, Sweden won. Made literally no saves on the penalty kicks. That's not good.
No.
She never touched the ball.
They were missing something big. And I watched every game, and it was just like and they said at the start of the tournament that their weakness was their defense. Yeah. And no, that was not their weakness. Their weakness was offensively. They could not put anything together.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
I love watching Japan play. Japan is so much fun to watch. I know Sweden beat them, but man, are they fast. Holy cow. That game came right down to the last minute. I thought Japan was going to tie it up. But Sweden's very good. To beat Japan, you got to be good. Japan is really good. So the U.S. barely lost to a very, very good Sweden team. So.
Yeah, they'll be back.
Yeah, you're right. I was disappointed. But
yeah, I honestly, like I said, I thought the expectations were way overhyped and too high for this team. They just didn't have the talent.
Yeah,
they really just didn't have the talent. Now, the effort thing, I can't really judge on because I didn't watch. But if that's the case, then they need to make a change at the coach, and I think they need to do that regardless. But either way, they're back. They'll be back. So, all right,
they
next
played
one.
Hard.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, next one for me. O's employee suspended for not cutting John Angelo's meat during the ball game.
Boy, the fans are going to walk out on that, man. I heard his call. My God. Did you hear the call of the fight with that Hernandez guy?
Well, that's
down goes Frazier.
That's my friend Tom Hamilton. I've known Tom for 25 years.
What a great call.
That's
what
Tom.
A great call.
Tom's one of the great guys out there. Did a lot of Big Ten.
What was the guy's name who got knocked? Hernandez, the one who threw the punch. Who was the guy who got knocked down?
Ramirez is the one that threw the punch, and Anderson is the one that absorbed it.
He's yelling, "Down goes Anderson! Down goes!" Like laughing, man. That was great. What a punch! Oh, one shot, boom. So, UFC.
Steve, you got any more?
No, I got nothing. I'm at work.
In terms of headlines?
Yeah.
Eagles lose preseason game. Panic ensues.
No.
Well, if
The
the
Eagles
starters
are gonna be
bomb, maybe
really
that might
good
happen.
this year.
But yeah, we'll be all right.
I said they lost a
I got a
preseason
friend.
game at Penn. Look, you don't understand this fan base. Like, they lost the game 23-17.
I got a friend. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a friend. He's got 4 season tickets for the Patriots, right? Row 10, Section 10, row 10. Those seats on opening night with the Eagles against the Patriots, because they're retiring Tom Brady's number, are $5,000 a seat.
I can
called him the
imagine.
other day. Oh, yeah. He goes, what? I said, because his name's Claudio. He starts giggling, you know. I said, dude, watch it on TV. $20,000. It's $20,000 worth of seats. And that's a month away, you know. If they're going to get higher as it gets up. So he Googled it on Ticketmaster, and yeah, those seats are going for $5,000 a seat. He's got 4 of them. 10th row, Section 10. Oh.
Very nice.
That's the game I was supposed to go to last year. So.
And is that game a primetime game?
Yeah, it's the 4:25 CBS game.
Yep.
Jim Nance, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson on the call.
So it's not a prime game.
Yeah, they're not.
No, but it's the
And they're
national
not
game of the
saying
week.
what they're going to do.
Because of the Eagles, they threw it in the afternoon. Maybe they should have had the Bills. 49ers.
Tom Brady Day, opening day, Tom Brady Day, September 10th, I think. I don't.
Go Birds.
They're not saying what they're going to do. Boy, I really stink if he didn't come down the field and you paid $5,000 for your seat.
Yeah.
So he just waves to you from the booth.
All right, last one from me.
I think he's coming down the field.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. O's employee suspended for not cleaning up John Angelo's dog's poop.
Oh, you don't even know if he has a dog.
Or insert animal name here, whatever.
What kind of dog?
It probably has one of those little yipper dogs. I'm sure that's what he has. I can't stand those
Chihuahua.
things.
So
Yeah.
to
Those
sum
little
this up,
chihuahuas. Yeah. My
And so to
stepdaughter's
sum-
got one of them.
to sum this up, Matt, you're not applying for the Orioles job?
That would be correct.
It pays pretty well.
Can you imagine? Oh. Can't say anything. I can't even imagine. They've been so bad so long.
News Radio